Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Leadership Academy podcast. My name is AJ Willoughby. Glad to be with you all. I'll tell you, I'm really excited about the show today, and we're going to get into that in just a minute. First, I want to tell you about our sponsor of the show, Titan Media Works. Titan Media Works, they are the easy button to doing podcasting. If you're trained to figure it out, get into it, and don't want the hassle of all the production and editing, check them out. Titan Media Works with an X, WORX.com. They can help you. All right, let's get into it. We're going to get into some really awesome stuff as far as leadership, getting you educated on things. We have special guest Bruce Tulgan with us today. He is an advisor to business leaders all over the world. He's a sought after keynote speaker, a seminar leader. He's the founder and CEO of Rainmaker Thinking Incorporated, which is a management research and training firm, as well as Rainmaker Learning, an online training resource. He's also the best-selling author of numerous books, including Not Everyone Gets a Trophy, Bridging the Soft Skills Gap, the 27 Challenges Managers Face, and It's Okay to Be the Boss, and his newest book, The Art of Being Indispensable at Work, which is available now from Harvard Business Review Press. He lectures at Yale Graduate School of Management as well as other academic institutions. He's written for New York Times, the Harvard Business Review, HR Magazine, and writes regularly for Training Magazine, Forbes.com, and Psychology Today. Holy cow, Bruce, you've been working with tens of thousands of leaders and managers all over the place. On top of that, the fact that you are the master in karate do, a seventh degree black belt.
That is true. I've been studying karate for going on 50 years.
Wow. So you're a Kyoshi master?
I am. That's true.
On top of that, you've also been named the management guru from Management Today. So you are the guy. You've got the black belt in karate and also the black belt in business.
Well, listen, AJ, it beats working.
Yeah. Hey, I agree. There you go. So, Bruce, tell us a little bit very quickly. I mean, we ran down a bunch of stuff there, but real quick, what is it you do for the clients and the people that you work for? I know a lot of what you do is a lot of speaking and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so for 30 years, we've been doing research on the front lines of the workplace in organizations of all shapes and sizes. We do in-depth interview research. And so more than 500,000 people from more than 400 organizations have participated in our research over the last 30 years. Our interviews are longitudinal interviews, so many of them go on for years or decades. We work with organizations ranging from the United States Army to Walmart and lots of folks in between. And what we do is we do organizational assessments, team assessments, talent assessments, and then we collect that data and we're constantly crunching that data. That data turns into articles and white papers and books. And then that stuff turns into leadership training programs. And yes, I also am a traveling dog and pony show. I end up on stage at a lot of business conferences, giving a lot of keynotes, and I go in a lot of organizations and do seminars and advise a lot of business leaders. So we've been doing that ever since my first book came out. My first book was Managing Generation X back in the early 90s. And I was an unhappy lawyer at number 2 Wall Street. And that book liberated me from the practice of law.
Well, there you go. Managing Generation X. Well, dang, that's almost where we're at.
Yeah. I mean, that's when we were young. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, so, and 30 years later, not so young anymore.
Yeah, now we're on XYZ and beyond,
Exactly.
of all these. So, all right, let's take a couple things from your books. Let's just dive right into some practical things that we can bring out to people. And
Sure.
we may take something from each of your books here. I don't know. We'll
well,
see.
well, there's 21 books, so I don't know if we have time.
Maybe not from all 21. All right, let's take not everyone gets a trophy. Now, first off, I love the title of this because in the world we live in today, it's like everyone deserves something, It's like, well, that's not the way we were brought up. But all right, beyond that. So how to bring out the best in young talent. So how do you bring out the best in young talent? What are some concepts from that?
Yeah, I mean, so look, we've been tracking young people in the workplace since the early 90s, back when we were young. And look, every generation comes along, and the older, more experienced people look at the younger, less experienced people and think that they're disloyal, they have short attention span, they don't want to work as hard, they demand immediate gratification, they want everything their own way, and they want it right now. And part of that is just about being young, but part of that is about generational change. What generational difference is, an intersection of ordinary life stage changes, developmental stages, and accidents of history. Right. So young people today uh, are, they grew up in an era of globalization and technology, institutions in a state of constant flux, individuals scrambling to take care of themselves and their families, information tidal wave, the pace of change accelerating every step of the way. If you look at the macro factors, right, those are the macro factors. On a micro level, parenting norms have changed, teaching norms, the way we think about children. Heck, the 90s were the decade of the child, and sort of self esteem based parenting, teaching, and counseling. And, if you look at the millennials, right, the first wave millennials, uh, uh, they came of age in the 90s, or they sort of formed their mindset in the 90s when everything was great. The second wave millennials grew up in the early 2000s when everything was not so great after 9/11 and all that. But Generation Z and the folks who come after Generation Z, I mean, if you like the millennials, you're gonna love Generation Z because, you know, uh, they're like the millennials on fast forward, with self esteem on steroids and anxiety to the 10th power, and they've grown up in an era where institutions can't be counted on as the anchors of success and security. They've grown up in an era where environmental destruction is on the table, war, economic chaos, not to mention the information environment. And, meanwhile, they all grew up learning how to think, learn, and communicate attached to handheld supercomputers. And you know, uh, uh, they've also grown up during an era where all styles are equally valid. We're all winners. Everyone gets a trophy. But when you get to the real world, that's a little confusing because that's nonsense, right? We're not all winners. If we're all winners, then we need a new word for winning because it's just nonsense. And so, but I think there are a lot of myths about young people that they want everything on a silver platter and they want it right now. That's just nonsense. Or that, they don't want to work hard, they demand immediate gratification. Well, I mean, okay. But they operate in a post job security environment where institutions are in a state of constant flux. I think most young people today don't want to be humored by the grown-ups. They want to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
And older, more experienced people will say, "Oh, well, they make all these outrageous demands." Well, they just want to know, "Hey, what do you want from me today, tomorrow, this week, this month, next week, next month, and what do you have to offer me?" No hard feelings. But people work to make a living, and one way to think about young people today is They don't think long term and hierarchical. It used to be you hitch your wagon to the star of an established organization, you pay your dues, you climb the ladder, you do as you're told, you wait for the boss to notice you, you wait for the system to take care of you, right? But nobody trusts the system to take care of them in the long term anymore. And if you want a simple way to understand where young people are coming from today, they don't think long term and hierarchical, they think short term and transactional. What do you have for me? What do you want from me? What do you want me to do? What do you have to offer me in exchange? And it's one person at a time, one day at a time. People think short term and transactional nowadays, and they don't want everything on a silver platter. They want to know, what do I need to do to earn that thing? And the biggest myth about young people today is that they need or want somehow weak leaders, that they want leaders to coddle them. That's nonsense. What young people want and need is not weak leadership, it's strong leadership. Who's the
Yeah.
most effective employer of young people in the world today? The United States Armed Forces. You think that they're saying, hey, come to work whenever you feel like it and bring your dog and we'll praise you no matter what you do? Nope. Strong leadership is how they get exceptional performance out of young people. And they're the most effective employers of young people in the world.
Yeah. Okay. So long term versus short term results here when you're doing businesses, you own businesses, you're always thinking about, obviously the short term, but also the long term. Here's my goals. Here's what I've got, my 3-year plan, 5-year, 10-year plan, whatever. And we got to work towards these things. So how do you work with this generation that is that short-term transactional? I just want it now, when you're trying to get them to realize that, hey, this is something that we're building up to. They want, whereas here we are, we're at that place of, hey, we earned our stripes over time, over multiple years of doing the wrong thing and making a mistake, and then doing it over and over and over, and they want it right now. They want those stripes right now as opposed to earning them, is what it feels like.
Well, look, there are real elements of value that come from experience. And we should find a way to value experience and longevity, institutional memory, relationships, old fashioned work ethic. There are ways to value that in the marketplace. We can value that. But seniority for the sake of seniority just cause, there is no real market value to that. It's what comes from experience and seniority that is valuable and that we should value. But I also think young people, look, if you want their expectations to be reasonable, spell out expectations every step of the way. And of course, businesses have long term story arcs, businesses have long term strategies, businesses need long term employees. How you get today's young people to be longer term employees, though, is one day at a time. You cannot just wind them up. And, in the workplace of the past, people would make one short term sacrifice after another in exchange for vague promises about long term rewards that vested in the future. No way. Hey, listen, son, stick with me and just do what I tell you. Here's where you're going to be in 5 years, kid. And they're thinking, oh, silly grown up, you don't know where you're going to be in 5 years. Right. And they're onto something. Right. So, hey, listen, son, make one short term sacrifice after another, bend over backwards, jump through hoops, break a few eggs, stay late. And in the long run, the system will take care of you. Right. And even if you are absolutely heartfelt in your promise, their point of view is, silly grown up, you don't understand. We operate in an environment of uncertainty. And in an uncertain environment, it makes no sense to think long term hierarchical. It makes only sense to think short term and transactional. Now, how do you turn them into long term employees? One day at a time. You've got to guide, direct, support, and coach them. Spell out expectations, make expectations clear, and make sure that you're providing strong, supportive, granular leadership. That's how you turn today's young people into longer term employees.
Now, do you think that maybe they might have something here when they're talking about wanting things to be more transactional? Let's look at the now instead of the long term when it comes to business and running business and making business. I mean, we've always been taught our age, our generation, plan long term, plan all this, but maybe they've got a point. Maybe, maybe we'd be growing businesses faster if we were more right on top of things, making those short term type of advancements. I don't know. What,
Well,
what
well,
you,
well, look, AJ, for one thing, it wasn't their idea. They just got here. They're not the ones who said, let's make downsizing, restructuring, and reengineering a constant process. They're not the ones who say, oh, yeah, sorry, we're going to spin off this division. We're going to sell to private equity. We're going to merge. We're going to get rid of this group. We're going to, oh, yeah, hey, sorry, we don't need you anymore. It wasn't their idea. They didn't kill job security. They're just not going to pretend that job security isn't dead. So, and yes, of course, look, any business, for example, any business that's research and development intensive, okay, there is a longer term investment horizon. It takes time. Let's say pharmaceutical company, research and development, you need clinical trials, all that stuff. And it also is extremely helpful to have talent that develops institutional memory and experience and relationships and all those things. So it's not that there's no role for that. Of course, that stuff is still valuable. It's just that given the reality, employment relationships are transactional by definition. And if the long-term rewards are no longer credible, then you have to do it one day at a time.
all right. All right. So here we are, post pandemic. Yeah, I'll be glad when we're done saying that. And maybe we should be. It's been it was enough time. But Winning the Talent Wars is one of your books.
Yeah.
And it's talking about the staffing and retention for the post-pandemic workforce. And here we're talking about talent. We're talking about things have changed. Granted, whether the whole thing that happened with the pandemic, it changed the way we do business all around the world, here in the States especially, and the generation that's coming up after that, they're got a different way of what they're wanting to work. The hybrid work environment versus we went to everybody working at home, and now that's coming into hybrid. How's all this play into everything we're talking about, especially with talent and bringing up new
Yeah.
talent?
So our talent wars research, we've been doing that for a long time, and what we're looking at is the dynamics of attraction, selection, onboarding, up to speed training, performance management, rewards, incentives, retention, knowledge transfer, succession planning, leadership development. What is that human capital life cycle? And one of the biggest problems facing most organizations today, especially in healthcare, for example, and in other STEM fields, is there is a shortage of skilled talent, right? The demand for skilled talent is outpacing supply. It has been for a while. It was before the pandemic, right? And it's just worse now. And now with constraints on immigration growing, there's even more question about that, right? There's an age bubble in the workforce. The grown-ups are leaving. There's a bunch of young upstarts coming in with a whole new attitude, right? And so much of what we try to help our clients figure out is, okay, what are young people looking for? First, what's your staffing strategy, right? So
Yes.
how many long-term fixed employees do you really need in the core group of each team, department, division, operating company. What is your long-term fixed core group, and how are you going to maintain, sort of longevity of employment among those folks? And then how much work can you get done with a fluid talent pool, whether it's part-timers, flex-timers, telecommuters, consultants, by outsourcing. So first you got to think about, is your staffing strategy relevant today? Because if you're still thinking like, hey, pay your dues, climb the ladder, and then you get a pension at the end, like that's out of sync with the reality of the employment market. So
Right.
first you need a proper staffing strategy. Then you need a proper attraction message. What are people looking for? Welcome to the family. In the long run, the system will take care of you. In one ear, out the other. They want to know, what do you want from me? What do you have to offer me? Money, money, money. So, money doesn't matter anymore. I don't know what color the sky is on that planet, AJ, because people still care about money. And then
It's
once you take money out of right, so money matters. And then people care about more control over their own schedule, more control over where they work, more control over who they work with, more control over their task choice. What are they learning? So you have to have an attraction message. And here's our mission. These are our values. This is what we do, right? So you got to have a really powerful message that speaks to today, tomorrow, this week, this month, this year, what people care about, what they want. And then you got to be really selective, right? So you have to have really good selection process that's tuned into today's workforce mindset. And one of the things we look at is early voluntary departure. So our big talent wars project with most of our clients is reducing early voluntary departures. And the top three causes of early voluntary departures: number one is buyer's remorse, right? You oversell the job.
Mhm.
Is the biggest way you get buyer's remorse. So they show up and they're like, this is not what you said, right? This is not what you promised me. Or, sometimes there's buyer's remorse on the employer side because you're so desperate to hire someone, you hire them even though you got a bunch of red flags that you shouldn't have hired. Right. So
Mhm.
that's the number one cause of early departure. The number two cause of early departure is a weak onboarding, right? There's no good onboarding process, up to speed training process. We work a lot with the military. The Marines are a great example. They have this little thing called boot camp, right? First 13 weeks, 24 hours a day, works like a charm,
Yeah.
right? But most organizations, they don't have a good onboarding process.
Yep.
And so people are like, I showed up and they're like, we're really busy. Sink or swim, start moving your arms and legs, and, best of luck. Well,
Yep.
that's a great way to have people leave. Or sometimes they leave in their head, but they keep collecting a paycheck. They just are like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to hide out and collect a paycheck until they notice. The third cause of early voluntary departures is a handoff to a weak manager. So even
Mm.
if you have an appropriate attraction message that's real, you're good at selecting people. And one of the most important things about selection is telling them all the downsides of the job so they're not surprised. You have a good onboarding process. Even if it's not boot camp, you get people on board and up to speed. But then you hand them off to a manager who's like, nobody held my hand, kid, figure it out. And then that's the third cause of early voluntary departures, is a weak manager.
Yeah.
So, if it's so hard to hire people, you better do it right so that you don't waste those good hiring opportunities.
Okay, so real quick, I want to grab something you mentioned, the attraction message. So briefly, creating that attraction message without overselling, because you're right, you go oversell it, you present something that, oh well, you had me at hello, and hello was incredible, and then you let me down. I fell whenever I reached out for you to catch me. uh how do you go about creating that real attraction message that's going to be attractive, but yet not overselling yourself?
Well, if you're a values-based and mission-based organization, you want to put your values and your mission up front, but don't make the mistake of having your attraction message be all about you as a company. We're a family-owned business. We've been here for 142 years and blah, 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 blah. Nobody cares. Sorry, they don't care.
Yeah.
Right? So sure, put your mission and values up front, but then the key is speak to them. And it's you want to be right up front about day one, week one, month one, year one, and year two maybe. Here's what we want from you. Here's what we have to offer you. And then you start with, okay, here's where the money is. That's a threshold issue. And here's what you do to earn more. Right? So here's how you could earn more. That's how you take care of the money part. Then the things people care about, more control over their own schedule, more control over where they work, more control over task choice, more control over who they work with, and more control over learning opportunities. But it's got to be real, right? It's got to be real. And then that's your attraction message, right? And it's got to be authentic. And then my advice is once you've convinced someone they want to come work for you, then the first step in selection is try to scare them away.
Yeah.
Tell them all the downsides of the job, see who's left. Right? And they're the ones worth testing and interviewing.
There we go. All right. Now, you've been mentioning several times about strong leadership and
Yes.
how to be that strong leadership. Now, one of your books is called It's Okay to Be the Boss.
Yeah.
Step-by-step guide to becoming the manager your employees need. That sounds like right in line with what it is being that true leader here. So what are some concepts out of that? What is it that we need to learn out of this book to be a better leader?
So nobody needs a weak leader. And the only people who want weak leaders are losers who are hiding out. Okay? So nobody needs a weak leader. And if somebody wants a weak leader, you hired the wrong person. Okay.
So when you're saying weak leader, are you saying, well, hey, we need to be a drill sergeant?
No. So and there's there's nothing strong about chewing somebody out every once in a while, right? Chewing somebody out, I call that a manager tantrum. That's just loud, nasty weakness. You want to be strong like a parent, like a coach, like a teacher, thorough, consistent, disciplined, supportive. And so, you want to practice real empowerment instead of false empowerment. False empowerment is, hey, figure it out, sink or swim, take a crack at it, do it however you think it should be done. Reinvent the wheel. There's nothing empowering about that. Real empowerment is, I'm going to set you up for success. This is exactly what's up to you. This is exactly what's not up to you. This is what's required. This is what's allowed. Here are all the expectations. Here's your tasks, responsibilities, projects. Here are the standard operating procedures. This is how to do it right. This is how to do it right. I'm going to tell you what to do, how to do it. We're going to train you. We're going to support you. We're going to make sure that you are set up to do it right. We're going to give you the instructions, right? That's real empowerment. The second is practice real fairness, not false fairness. False fairness is we're going to treat everybody exactly the same. Everyone gets a trophy. Real fairness is you recognize what makes each person a special case, because everybody's a special case, and you practice situational leadership. You figure out what do you need from this person and what do they need from you? What do you want from this person and what do they want from you? And you figure out, what do they need to hear from you? How do they need to hear from you? Do you need to talk to them every day or twice a day? Or some people you need to talk to them 3 times a day. Some people you talk to them once a week, right? And so everybody's different. How you talk to this person, where you talk to this person, when you talk to this person, right? Everybody's different. Real fairness. And if somebody's going the extra mile, you do more for them. If somebody is, digging in their heels, they can clean the latrine with a toothbrush, right? That's real fairness. There's nothing fair about treating high performers and low performers the same. The third piece is don't be a jerk, right? And remember, being weak is what makes you a jerk, right? So if you don't keep track of what's going on, you're not going to be in a position to make good decisions. If you pretend things are up to people when they're not, that's going to make you seem like a jerk. If you let small problems slide and then come down like a ton of bricks later, that's going to make you seem like a jerk. If you pretend to be their friend, but then you get all serious when the work gets serious, that's going to make you seem like a jerk. If you soft pedal your authority and then when things go wrong, you get all angry and choose someone out, that's going to make you seem like a jerk. The way to make sure you're not a jerk is keep track of what's going on, be clear with people about what's up to them and what's not, solve small problems before they turn into big problems, talk about the work, and be strong, like patient, consistent, thorough, like a coach, like a teacher. Make accountability a process. That doesn't mean, I'm going to get you if you do something wrong. It means I'm going to get you in the habit of giving me an account of what you did so we can talk about it. And I'm going to have a lot more ordinary conversations. Think about all these books about crucial conversations, fierce conversations. Well, why are we having all these crucial conversations? Why don't we just have ordinary, supportive conversations where we help people do things right the first time so we don't have to solve problems that never should have happened in the first place? Right?
Yeah.
Stop blaming HR. Oh, HR won't let me. How about you take notes? Right? People are our number one asset. Oh, are they? Well, so how come you're not taking notes? Oh, I don't have time for that. People are number one asset. Well, how do you manage them? Oh, I got my own style, see? So people are your number one asset and you're winging it and you don't even bother taking notes. Well, no wonder HR is giving you a hard time, right?
Yeah.
So people think they don't have time to manage this way. You don't have time not to manage this way. If you manage upfront in advance, guide, direct, support, coach, make sure people are going in the right direction at the beginning, you will save time for everyone later.
Now, the person that's kind of coming along, maybe they're in middle management. They're trying to figure this all out. At the same time, they're trying to make sure that not only are they being the best leader for their staff, but maybe they're looking for promotion. They're trying to get to the next place. You've got the book, The Art of Being Indispensable at Work, which obviously is something that unless you are the owner of, of the place, you better be finding ways to be indispensable. And even some owners ought to be really thinking about that as well. They're going to be out of a business.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that real briefly.
Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, the first person you got to manage every day is yourself. The second person you got to manage every day is your boss. The third person you got to manage every day is anyone who reports to you and calls you their boss. The fourth person you got to manage every day is everybody else. And, there's a problem. We're all overcommitted. And if you want to be indispensable, there's a strong drive to say yes to everything. But if you
Mhm.
say yes to everything, you put yourself in a position where you are going to disappoint. Your yeses have to be rock solid. That means what you're always trying to do is make sure you know what are your boss's priorities, what are your boss's ground rules, what are your boss's marching orders. Make sure your people know what are the priorities, what are the ground rules, what are the marching orders, and know when to say no so that your yeses are rock solid.
Yeah. Yeah, Bruce, we have gone through just and talked about some of the concepts from just a few of your books. 21 books that you've written on all these different subjects. And things as I was scouring through your books beforehand, I'm realizing, wow, the knowledge and the power that as leaders we can be gaining from this, and how it hits so much to where we are today, coming out of the pandemic, dealing with this new generation, new to us, but well, new to anyone. Pretty much, if you're in leadership, you're dealing with new generation, the
Oh
new
yeah.
ones that are coming up. So, how can people best get a hold of your books and see what it is they want to get?
The books, wherever books are sold, but the best way to find, Rainmaker Thinking is our company, and there's a lot of totally free, like you cannot pay for it. It's totally free stuff at rainmakerthinking.com. We did a podcast. It's on hiatus right now, but there's like 103 episodes up there. I have a column in Forbes every week and in Psychology Today every week, and those columns are up there in the new news, and there's a lot of free stuff at rainmakerthinking.com. That's usually what I point people to.
All right. All right. My very last question. If there was one piece of advice, and granted, you've got a lot of advice, so narrowing this down. If there was one piece of advice that you wish that you would have had at the beginning of your journey that you think would have really helped change the trajectory or made a lot of the pitfalls that you've gone through not happen, made it a whole lot easier to get through, made it to where you could have gone a lot faster, what would that advice be?
Oh gosh, I've made plenty of mistakes. So get a good night's sleep every night. That's one thing. I guess I probably should have listened to my wife the first time on most issues. But
Wow.
I mean, look,
I agree.
communication is the only tool of leadership and collaboration. So make your communication high structure and high substance. But I guess I would say the first person you got to manage every day is yourself. So take care of yourself outside of work and practice being the person you want to become.
There you go. That's really good. Solid advice. Absolutely. Bruce, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for being on the show.
AJ, thank you so much. It's a privilege.
I'm really looking forward to getting some of your books myself and diving in. This has been a great episode. Again, the Leadership Academy, y'all need to be tuning in every time. This is, to have people of this stature being on with us is such a joy and such an honor to have you, Bruce. And
it's my privilege. Thank you so much.
The Leadership Academy, once again, sponsored by our sponsors, Titan Media Works. They are the easy button when it comes to podcasting, getting things going without having all the work that comes along with podcasting. It's as easy as being a guest on a show. You just show up, they take care of all the stuff for you and get it all done. Check them out, Titan Media Works, WORX.com, and they can help you out. Thanks again for joining us. Until next time on the Leadership Academy podcast, I'm AJ Willoughby. Have a great day.